First meeting of 2025.
AT&T says 8:29.
Uh-oh. If we can have roll call, please?
Rick Delange,
Present.
Chuck Horian,
Here.
James Lilly,
Here.
Roseanne Tornatini,
Tornator.
Guy Desai. I know.
And we have the two alternates
At
as well.
least you didn't say torture tour. Because some people do that.
Do we have to have state our alternates are present? Oh, or did I not get Chris?
That's okay. Just, I want to acknowledge their presence, you see.
Okay. And our alternates are present in the audience.
Thank you. All righty. So, anybody had a chance to look at the minutes from last meeting? And is there a motion to pass the meetings from last meeting?
Motion to approve the meeting.
Second.
All righty, roll call.
I'm sorry, who was the second? Thank you,
Mr. Lilly?
All right. Roseanne?
Yes.
Lilly?
Yes.
Mr. Delange?
Yes.
Mr. Horian?
Yes.
Guy Desai.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So we have our first agenda item. Gwen? No. Do we need to swear anybody in for?
Yes, Chair, this is a quasi-judicial hearing, so before we swear everyone in, I'd like to ask if there have been any ex parte communications. So if I could, I'll start down at the end. And
No.
Yes, I received a letter stating my neighbor is looking for a variance.
Okay. Yeah. You?
Yeah, I received that letter.
Okay. Yeah. You? Anyone else?
Nope.
No more? Okay. Okay, so next, because this is a quasi-judicial hearing, we'll swear everyone in who is going to give testimony, including staff and anyone in the audience who intends to testify. So if you could please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth during these proceedings. I do.
I do.
Sorry, not repeat after me. Okay, so you've been sworn in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Gwen?
Good morning, Chair Delange and board members. Gwen Herstein, City Planner for the City of Daytona Beach Shores. This is a request for an outdoor dining conditional use permit, which, if approved, will allow the mini golf course at 2504 South Atlantic to utilize 6 outdoor tables, a counter, and 38 chairs for outdoor dining. A little bit of background on the property. I stated the address already. You see the parcel ID before you. Owner applicant, LTG DBS LLC is the owner. David Bailey, who is the manager of a company who's a manager for LTG DBS LLC, is present in the audience today. The total property size is just over 1.3 acres. Zoning district that it's in is GCRD, which is the General Commercial Redevelopment District. Future land use is tourist-oriented commercial, and as I stated, it's a mini golf course at the current time, has been for almost a year, just over a year. The applicant submitted an outdoor dining conditional use permit application September 23rd, 2024, to allow them to utilize outdoor dining as stated previously at the Mulligan's Lagoon mini golf course. This is the site location. It is approximately 1.5 miles northwest or north along A1A from where we are at the present time, about a 3-minute drive. Here's an aerial view, and you'll see around it, just north of it, a motel. East of it, the Delta Hotel, and other hotels. Gianni's Plaza is just south of it, and there are single-family residences to the southwest of the property and to the fully to the west of the property. This is the zoning in the area. This property, as I stated, is zoned GCRD, as are the properties all along A1A to the north and south, with the exception of the on Dundee, just inside A1A, that property is GC1 oriented, or designated GC1, which is tourist-oriented commercial. And then all the properties along the east side of the street are utilizing either the T or the RMF1 zoning classification. This is a street view, and I apologize, it was a cloudy day. It was much like today when I took this picture. The colors pop a bit more than they did on that day, so I gave you a nice pretty picture of the sign at the bottom left. But this is an A1A view of this property, and you can see what we're talking about today, that outdoor dining use at the left side of the long picture. This is the diagram of the proposed outdoor dining use prepared by the applicant, who I stated is here today. The gray in the middle is the existing building where they have kitchen facilities, restrooms, and the area where they check you in to play mini golf. This area, the large boxed in orange, you can see where that's located on the property by looking at that smaller aerial view. It's down at the southeast corner of the property. The blue circles represent 3 high top tables. The green circles represent 3 low top tables. There is seating around the fire pit, and then there are countertop stools around the edge of the building, which you can see at the northeast corner of that gray existing building rectangle. Of the criteria, there are 5 different criteria that are part of all conditional use permits. And then there are 18 criteria that are part of only outdoor dining conditional use permits. And so they have to meet both in order to be approvable. This is the first set, the 5 that apply to all conditional use permits, and as you can see, and as you could see in the packet, the staff analysis and the exhibits which have been submitted for the record, you could see that each of those individually was met. And of the 18 that apply strictly to outdoor dining conditional use permits, 17 were met, and then 1 that dealt with temporary stanchions did not apply. There are no temporary stanchions in use or proposed to be used for this outdoor dining conditional use. Here is an image, or a couple images of the outdoor dining seating as it is arranged. At times, the tables have had umbrellas. The owner and the manager, the general manager, again, both of whom are here today, have had umbrellas at times at the 6 different tables. And in this picture, they were removed. They had some advertising on them. They're aware that they cannot utilize umbrellas with advertising, and so they removed them and have some other ideas and things that they'll do, but they are aware of the requirements. Public notice requirements have been met for this process, and the requisite staff review has been completed. Today, the Planning and Zoning Board recommendation is being sought, and that will proceed, then the case will proceed to the City Commission with your recommendation of approval or denial, and they will ultimately approve or deny the application. Does anyone have, oh, I'm sorry, staff is recommending approval of this conditional use permit based on the criteria, all criteria having been met. Approval as presented is the recommendation, and does anyone have any questions?
I do. Music, what are the hours this is going to be open outside, and what, are they going to have music so that other people are going to be hearing this that live around there? And you know, I just wanted to know the time frame of the hours, the music, etc.
The business actually closes at 10. The owners and the manager are aware that the outdoor dining use ends, I'm sorry, the business is open until 11. The manager and owners are aware that the outdoor dining use ends at 10, so that there shouldn't be any outdoor dining taking place after that time. In the fall, I was surprised that there was a test conducted with an acoustic guitar and an amp outside in the area. I have spoken with one of the owners, the owner applicant, in fact, about that, that is not something that is approved with this outdoor dining permit, that does not approve outdoor music of any kind like that. They may have speakers, I believe that they do, but they also have been operating with those speakers, going out to the folks who play golf for the time that they've been open, which is over a year. And they're aware that the allowable decibels decrease at 10 p.m. and staff has not received, from a code enforcement standpoint, any complaints regarding music, and so have not done any kind of investigation regarding that. In my capacity as working with our new code enforcement officer, and then now that we don't have one, actually conducting code enforcement to some degree, we have not received any complaints.
So those loudspeakers that are going to be talking to the people who are playing golf, how late are people playing golf?
The business is open until 11. I haven't seen how many folks are being accommodated at that hour, but the business is open until 11. The outdoor dining use is only usable until 10.
We have discussed music with the owner and everything. We're going to.
We have discussed that live music is not approved as a part of this process, and that outdoor activities are extremely limited by the codes of the city of Daytona Beach.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have. So in the beginning, when we first approved, did it have outside dining, and they're just asking for greater? Because it seems to me, since I pass by there every single day, that nothing has changed, that they've constructed this from the very start. So was it a situation that they built and then they realized they needed a permit, or what exactly occurred?
The site plan application that you would have approved and did approve did have these elements, not necessarily pointing out individual chairs, but possibly pointing out individual chairs, but did have those elements depicted, or some of these elements depicted during the site plan approval. However, that was to build in a specific way. This is to use the same property in a specific way. And there was some confusion about that on the part of the applicant, I do believe. Even when we discussed the need for a conditional use permit to conduct that outdoor dining, there was still a little bit of confusion as to, well, wait a minute, it was approved on our site plan, you knew we were doing this. And we had to go through again that that was to build it that way, this is for the use. And conditional use permits can be sought either prior to building, during the building, or in this case, after it's built. So sometimes people, in fact, I have one on my desk right now for outdoor dining a conditional use permit that is being sought before the fact to make sure that they can do what they want to do in the location.
Thank you for the clarification. I was a little confused, but you cleared it up.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
And we do have, again, the manager and the applicant owner here if you have questions for them.
I'm just a little concerned about the noise with the speakers. They plan on playing music while the place is open?
That has not been, well, I've been to the property a few times to assist with pictures and to check for the public notice requirements having been met. There is some music being played for the golfers, and as I said, I believe that's been played since they opened, and we haven't from a code enforcement standpoint, had any complaints regarding the volume of the music, the time that the music is being played, et cetera. So I don't believe that they plan to do anything differently than the way that they have been operating. However, they are here, so it's an excellent opportunity to ask them and have that clarified.
And just for clarification purposes, we have 2 other putt-putt places, and they do have speakers and they do have music that you hear as you walking or biking down their area. So
Correct.
as long as there's consistency,
Yes, consistency is important, and following the ordinances that are in place is important, and we have not, at times, sometimes the music will, I can think of one of those 2 existing mini golf places that the settings were canceled out and the music was too loud, and I heard about it within 24 hours, and they fixed it even more promptly.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
And just, I'd like to make one comment about that. You know, building, when we build, there's a lot of noise. But after 7, the noise is gone. So, I love music, okay? But a lot of people might not like that they're gonna have music until 10 o'clock at night. That's all I want to say.
Hopefully, the music that they choose to broadcast is more pleasant than construction sounds. There are no guarantees because everybody is different about it, but I think that both the manager and the owner applicant being here are getting the sense that, that this is something that they need to be aware of and need to adhere to.
Thank you, yes.
Thank you.
All righty. Is there any other further questions? We'll move to C. Is there a motion for approval?
I move to recommend approval of outdoor dining conditional use permit CUP 120240028 as presented.
I second.
Did you get that?
Yes, I have, and Mr. Horgan initiated and Mr. Desai was second.
Thank you. Roll call on that?
Yes, sir. Mr. Delange?
Yes.
Mr. Horgan?
Yes.
Mr. Lilly?
Yes.
Ms. Montour?
Yes.
Mr. Desai?
Yes.
Mr. Horgan? You said yes, okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
I
Glenn.
decided that Joanna is hungry when she comes because she always turns your name into something.
I'll bring some next time.
Thank you. So we move on to the second item. If I can get to that. Here we go. Comprehensive plan updated in 2045. Stuart, good morning. For the first time this year. So does this mean, Stuart, that we're getting an updated version of this?
So, I'll get into that in a second. I
Okay.
apologize. Happy New Year, everyone. For the record, my name is Stuart Cruz, Community Services Director with the City of Daytona Beach Shores. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, board members. The item that you have before you at this moment is Ordinance 2025-01, which is an evaluation and appraisal report based comprehensive plan amendment application by the City of Daytona Beach Shores. Board members, you may remember, those of you who have been around for a while, you may remember that the state of Florida requires every 7 years for the city to basically evaluate and appraise its comprehensive plan, its land use constitution for development within the local government. And so staff has done that and has essentially determined that all the changes that have been made since the last 2017 comprehensive plan amendments related to this particular statute, that our comprehensive plan are consistent with those changes. However, there are additional changes and updates that we have to do that's required under Florida law, and that's the reason why we're here today. So we have conveyed this information to the state of Florida, and we're here now going through that process. So what happens is after the board provides a recommendation, it goes to the city commission. If the city commission approves, then we go ahead and transmit to both the state of Florida. This is what you call a state coordinated review. That means it not only goes to the state land planning agency, which is now the Department of Commerce, Commerce. It also goes to the school, to the Department of Education, to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and all these other state agencies. In addition to that, it also goes to our local land use, comprehensive land use agency for review, which is called the Volusia Growth Management Commission. So the Volusia Growth Management Commission is comprised of local governments, including the county, who get to review each other's comprehensive plans to ensure that when it comes to infrastructure and development, that each other's comprehensive plans are consistent and one jurisdiction is not going to put onerous or unfair demands on their infrastructure and services. So that's the reason why we're here today. That's a mouthful.
Very well said, by the way.
Oh, thank you. So in our evaluation, we according to Florida statute, our planning horizon has to be, for the comprehensive plan, has to be 10 or 20 years. And so at this point, our comprehensive plan is up to 2030, we're at 2025, and so we obviously have to change that. And so staff is recommending that we extend the planning horizon to 2045. We've also recommended, as you'll see in your staff report, several changes to not the entire comprehensive plan, but to certain elements or chapters within the comprehensive plan, and I'll go through that. So whatever I talk about today and whatever you see in your actual comprehensive plan that doesn't have a strike through or underline remains the same. So our future land use maps and all the other policies that don't have an underline or a strike through type feature will remain the same. So the first thing I mentioned is the planning horizon will change. In Chapter 1, we're going to do some minor house cleaning. There are outdated numbers, outdated deadlines, and texts and things to that effect. And so minor house cleaning will occur in Chapter 1, 5, and some of the other chapters as well. But in addition to minor house cleaning in Chapter 1, staff is also recommending that we include off-beach parking as a permitted use in the public, quasi-public land use category. So what that means is that in any property that has a future land use classification, so you have your future land use, which is basically the long-term vision of the city for how properties will be used, and then you have your zoning, which is basically your short-term goal of how the property is going to be used. So in the comprehensive plan, the future land use category of public, quasi-public future land use does not include off-beach parking, and we know that the county has some properties around here where they want to do off-beach parking, and just to facilitate a good cordial relationship with the county and to be consistent with what they already have out here in Beachside, that particular land use would be added to the future land use category, which makes sense, right? If you have a public, quasi-public land use category, why not have public off-beach parking allowed in that category? And so that is being proposed in Chapter 1. In Chapter 5, which is our coastal management element, again, there are minor house cleaning text amendments that are being proposed, but in addition to that, staff is recommending that we go ahead and remove outdated community redevelopment area off-beach parking reference. You may have seen, if you took a look, that in that policy, there is the standard of the city providing 500 off-beach parking spaces, and that's tied into what's called the Community Redevelopment Agency, or the CRA. The CRA is no longer in effect. The city no longer has that commitment to the county, and so instead of maintaining that particular policy, staff is recommending that we strike through that policy and replace with a commitment to maintain the existing off-beach parking spaces that we have. And currently we have about 200 or so. In addition to that, in the coastal management element, staff is recommending that we include language or text that speaks to the effect of promoting what's called the introduction of an engineered beach. You've probably heard of that for the last 2 years or so. That is one of the things that the smarter people in this community believe that we need. When I say smarter people, I mean the county and all the other stakeholders. Believe that an engineered beach of some sort is required to help protect upland properties, meaning the properties that you guys have, live on, invest in, that is above the beach. In order to protect that beach fully, in addition to a seawall, what we've been told as staff is that an engineered beach is required. And so this is not committing us to an engineering beach. What it is committing us to do is to promote the introduction of an engineered beach. So basically, we coordinate with the county and other stakeholders to lobby the state and the federal government to essentially develop an engineered beach at some point in time. Other changes that are being recommended, and these are just standard that we do all the time, updating the sanitary sewer, solid waste, and potable water level of service standards consistent with the city of Port Orange. So the city of Port Orange provides sewer and potable water to the city of Daytona Beach Shores in most cases for potable water, and in all cases for sanitary sewer. And so it only makes sense for us to have standards, level of service standards consistent with what they have in their comprehensive plan as well. And finally, in the coastal management element, staff is proposing that we update and include increase in boat slips subject to additional boat slip entitlements via the annexation process allowed under the Florida statute. So what that means is every local government in Volusia County that has waterfront, they're allowed to have a certain number of boat slips. A boat slip is basically where you put a boat or some sort of watercraft. And so according to that plan that the Volusia County has for boat slips, it's actually called the Manatee Protection Plan. And in that Manatee Protection Plan, every local government has a certain number of boat slips. So generally, you can't increase the number of boat slips in your local government unless the city actually grows. And the city only grows through annexation for the most part. And so that is just a cleanup type policy in which we won't be shooting ourselves in the feet or basically tying our hands in the event that we increase the size of the city on the riverfront side, in which we cannot or would not be allowed to have additional boat slips. So in other words, what that means is when we annex, we can have additional boat slips.
Because, clarification, so currently we have 0.
No, we have a certain amount. Every local government waterfront has a certain number of boat slips. And so the policy essentially had said that we cannot increase our boat slips, or we are stuck with a certain number that's in the Manatee Protection Plan. What this is saying is that that number can change or increase over time whenever the city increases its size. In other words, if we annex more waterfront property, the entitlement that comes with those boat slips for those waterfront property are now added into the pool that the city has.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Thank you. And so Chapter 9, the capital improvements element, again, there are some minor house cleaning updates that we have to make in there, but in addition to that, the capital improvement elements have 2 tables. One of the table is a 5-year capital improvements plan. And so what we're doing there is we're updating that plan because the one that we have in the comprehensive plan is outdated, and we're now updating it consistent with the 5-year CIP that was recently approved by the City Commission. The other table that's in there is the Volusia County School District 5-year work program. We have to update that as well because 1 is outdated and 2 is required by the interlocal agreement that we have with the school district, the county, and all the other cities in Volusia County. And then finally, again, just as I mentioned earlier, with the coastal management element, in the capital improvements element, there are level of service standards for sanitary sewer, solid waste, and potable water that we propose to amend to be consistent with the city of Port Orange. And then finally, Chapter 11, which is the public school facilities element, there are some minor house cleaning text amendments that we have to make as well. So you may have seen a report that was used to substantiate the proposed amendments. Typically, whenever we do a major comprehensive plan amendment here in the state of Florida, we have to provide something that's called a data inventory and analysis, and these are the highlights. I'm just going to show 2 slides. You may have seen that. There is a bunch of different numbers and figures in that report that you'll see in there, but essentially, staff did an analysis of our population, and based on the ratio between the city and Volusia County, staff has essentially utilized the ratio that was provided by BEBR, which is the Bureau of Economic and Business Research, which is basically the standard for the state of Florida in terms of providing projections. We utilized their number in terms of the relationship between Daytona Beach Shores and Volusia County, that ratio, and we extrapolated that and we basically projected into the future what the future population of Daytona Beach Shores would look like for the planning horizon, which is 20 years or 2045. And this is what you can see. Unfortunately, you'll note that the population, the permanent, and when I say population, I mean the permanent residential population of Daytona Beach Shores is only going to grow by 900 plus, so less than 1,000. And so you'll see that over the long term, you'll see that our population is projected to kind of stabilize, if you will. If you look at this chart to the right, you'll see that the growth spurt, if we will, occurred between 1980 and 2000, and then from 2000 up to about 2020. But over the long term, the population projection is expected to kind of stabilize and not be as incremental as it was earlier the last 20, 30 years. So another slide that I'm going to show in terms of the data that was in the Data Inventory and Analysis, or DIA report, is the land use distribution. You may have seen this, and so you can obviously tell that the vast majority of our land use in terms of land area in East Shores is residential. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure that out, but the data shows that. And so next, behind that would be commercial and public facilities as well. So generally, when the population is of a certain amount and the level of housing is not there, or the level of infrastructure improvements that are necessary to sustain that projected population is not there, that is when there's a whole bunch of other changes to your future land use map, to your capital improvements element, and to all the other elements in your comprehensive plan. But because we have a surplus of over 1,500 when it comes to permanent residential population, we know that on paper, theoretically, that additional 1,500 housing units are being occupied by short-term rentals, but for the purposes of the Florida statutes and for the purposes of urban planning and regional planning, we look at permanent residential population because that's the most important thing. And because we have a surplus, when you compare 1,000 people being added from now to 2045, and you have over 1,500 units, additional units in terms of supply, it doesn't require or foster any major changes in our comprehensive plan. And that's the reason why what you see before you today is essentially just things that are required by the statute and updates that are required, as I mentioned, by the statute as well. So based on that was a mouthful. Based on that, staff has recommended approval as presented. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to take those.
Thank you, Stuart. Any questions?
Well done.
Thank you.
I do have some questions. Recently in the news, the city of Edgewater, Port Orange, they're considering delaying or looking at the approvals of certain properties because of water damage and flooding. And that's a concern that I think we all are having, especially we live on on an island that it's pretty curved down to our neighbors. So water retention and flooding potential becomes a big concern for the city. I did not dig into every single line, but can you give us an assurance or an overview of the concerns of the other cities and what we have done in order to make sure that we comply and we're looking at that situation?
So I can certainly not assure you of what other cities are doing and what their thought process is, but what I can tell you for the city of Daytona Beach Shores, because we're in a barrier island, and in the Data Inventory and Analysis report, there is a section there about flooding and about stormwater. It's very minimal, and the reason for that is because in Daytona Beach Shores, we do not have the same geographic makeup as other places. So other places, they have more of a peat and I don't want to sound nerdy, but an organic type of substrate. Basically, the ground is more compact, and so when there's rain or when there's any kind of precipitation, the water percolation rate is much lower than it is over on beachside. In beachside, the sand is much more pervious when it comes to percolation rates, and so we have a higher rate, and the retention rate of water precipitation on the barrier island for the most part is very, very high. And that's the reason why whenever it rains on beachside, for the most part, you don't see any issues. Now, in the last storm, there was what you call localized flooding. So localized flooding is somewhat different. But what I can assure you of, you asked for some assurance, what I can assure you of is that our stormwater regulations are consistent with Florida statutes and consistent with the general engineering and stormwater practices in the United States of America. So unless those changes, we would still continue to remain consistent. The big challenge, well, I shouldn't say the big challenge, but what we do and what local governments should be doing in general anywhere in the United States is to ensure that whenever there's a new development or redevelopment, that the development contains all water on site. Any new, what we call positive stormwater that is created. So essentially, and again, I don't want to sound nerdy or whatever have you, but whenever you have a site, there's a certain amount of natural runoff that comes on that site. whenever a property is redeveloped, the additional or surplus supply of stormwater has to be contained on site. And so land use and stormwater regulations in cities' land development codes and in their comprehensive plans to some extent, ought to require that containment be on site. And so assuming that a developer or a development happens the right way and the stormwater system is designed to capture and treat that additional supply of stormwater, if it is maintained the right way, and that's the big thing, as I was mentioning, challenge. The big challenge is maintenance of your stormwater system. And so that is something that probably as a city, we need to continue to remind property owners of. Because when you're living on a 10th or 11th floor or whatever, you're not thinking about the stormwater system under the ground. The stormwater system, if it's not maintained, if it gets clogged up, if it's not pigged, if it's not cleaned continuously, if there's not a replacement and a maintenance schedule for that, it becomes clogged up. And when there is a normal rain or a heavy rain, an abnormal rain event, there will be, if your pipes are clogged up, what's going to happen? The water's going to back up and it's going to flood. And that's what we've seen in other jurisdictions. We haven't really seen that here in Daytona Beach Shores, but it is a possibility that that can occur. So that's the most important thing. The localized flooding that we had with Milton, I believe it was, and then even before Milton, that unfortunately we believe is a subject of tidal influence during a storm. In other words, so everyone knows that you have your beach, which is lower, and then you have your dune ridge, which is higher, and in Daytona Beach Shores, it ranges anywhere from 17 feet to about 22, 23 feet. It's actually very high, and then from there, the grade of the barrier island kind of slopes down. When you get closer to the river, properties that are closer to the river have a propensity to flood because when there's a storm, the tides rise in the river, and so the water cannot get out because there's an automatic shut valve because there's nowhere else for the water to go because the tide and the elevation of the river is higher than the outlet for the stormwater. And so we believe that some of that may have played an influence in the recent flood that we had in the La Paloma area. In addition to that, we also have been getting reports that maybe there was some illegal movements that occurred. We don't have the data to substantiate this, but we believe that maybe some property owners did things that they weren't supposed to do. And this is what I'd like the public to know. You might think that, making an innocent change in your property, might, for aesthetics or landscaping purposes, is something that's wonderful. You're going to make your spouse happy, your kids happy, or whatever have you. Well, unfortunately, down the road, if it's not done right, it will make you and your neighborhood unhappy. And so we always try to tell people, before you go moving dirt or earth on their properties, get with the city, get a permit to ensure that it's done the right way.
Great explanation. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
So you mentioned earlier on about Engineer Beach, and that's a subject that we never thought about before our prior hurricanes. I heard from a couple of people that we're one of the few counties in the state of Florida that the Army Corps of Engineers has not had an engineering review of our beaches. Is that correct?
So I do not know that for a fact, but that is what I'm hearing from, again, people who are smarter than I am and people who do that for a living. Beach management is a totally different world from the planning world. So I don't want to go on record saying that, but that is what I have heard. And I know that there is some movement towards coalescing efforts here in Daytona Beach Shores, not in Daytona Beach Shores, I'm sorry, in Volusia County, to basically lobby the state and the federal government to come to that product. And it's my understanding that the Corps of Engineers have had some folks down here last year taking a look at that particular opportunity there.
Thank you because you mentioned it early on, and it clicked, and I wanted to make sure that the rest of the board hears that and understands where we are and where we're going. So
Right.
I appreciate that. Is there any other questions or concerns for Stuart or the city or Gwen?
Very impressive presentation.
Yes.
But after we vote on this, because.
Yes, same here.
There's nothing
Yeah.
to do.
All right, having said that, I'm looking for the motion. Can you put it up there if you could? Is there a motion for approval?
I move to recommend approval of ordinance 2025-01 as presented.
Second.
Thank you. If we have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Delange?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Lilly?
Yes.
Ms. Bonator?
Yes.
Mr. Desai?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Is there, now we have, that's it. I thought we had another item, but we don't.
But I do have a question for Stuart.
Okay, if we go under board comments, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Stuart, as far as lighting, straighten me out, okay? Is there a rule?
Lighting expert right next to me.
Okay, is there a rule, honey, on the quality of lighting facing different condo buildings? I have a condo building that's right next door to the Pomabella that has just put in orange lights.
Oh, yeah.
All on the side. I want to know if we have anything that says the quality of lighting is registered in a certain area or whatever. In other words, shouldn't those lights be geared to the surroundings of where we are? And I'm concerned, because what if it doesn't say you can put purple lights in, or yellow lights in, or blue lights in, or whatever? Can people put any color of lighting anywhere they want in the shores? And was that orange, terribly orange light promoted and given a,
Approval.
approved? Yeah, terrible.
Okay, so you have a couple layers to your question. Bottom line, colors of lighting are not currently regulated. That's not something that we address in our code at all. In fact, the one piece that our code does address is very specific, and it has to do with glare visible from residential properties. Not even glare to another commercial property, or it doesn't specify where the glare has to come from. It could be from residential, from commercial, but you cannot cause glare to residential properties. It is non-specific regarding, like, it's not quantitative, it's qualitative. So people will call and say, somebody installed some lights, they're filling my home, condo unit, what have you, with light. Can you see the light source, like the bulb? If not, there's probably not, each situation is different, but there's probably not a glare issue, which is the only thing that we regulate. If someone fills your condo unit with light, then there's nothing in the code that says that they can't do that, that it's too, that a piece is too bright. However, if they cause glare, meaning you look and you have to turn away because it's an unshielded light source, that's something that has to be fixed and has been caused to be fixed in the past. It doesn't make everybody happy. We go out and assess that at night, of course, when you can see it. And sometimes there's glare, and sometimes there is no glare. The folks at Oceans Grand, when Chase Bank went in, there is that purpley blue lighting facing west, and the folks there were not happy about it. We went out at night, took a look, and there is really no glare issue. There was no glare issue created because of it. We did work with the people at Chase to ask if they could turn it off at a certain time, and they ended up doing just that. But they did it as a gesture of goodwill to the community, as opposed to because the code required it. We are currently taking a look at some commercial sources of lighting, but that may or may not satisfy the issue that you're having in any way. And colors of light are definitely not currently included.
Time frame. If it's facing a whole building, 75 lights, orange, all night long, whatever. Is there a time frame limit? Is there any kind of, how do I get somebody to go over there and check it out as far as glare?
You
Who
would,
do I have to call?
you would place a code enforcement complaint, and then we would assess that whether or not there is glare coming to the source of the complaint, like your unit, and if there were 2 other units that you knew had the same issue, we would try to shut off.
There are 40, 50 units that have this complaint.
Yeah, I'll just go stick it there.
Orange color, turtle safe lighting.
But that's the front, for the side.
And then, of course, we have turtle season, and they really evaluate and look and see if there's any leakage of lights into the sand and beach area.
And beyond that, above that, that's another aspect of what you're describing. The turtles apparently don't see the orange and reddish lights as well, and so it's better for them.
I know, but
Yes.
these are facing this way and
Yep.
have nothing to do with the turtles. I do know a little bit about lighting.
I saw it too.
Think?
I forgot.
47 years of it.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay, but yes, okay, so I'll file a complaint.
Yes, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to add something. Staff is looking into some lighting changes in our land development code, but we just have to be careful. And we are working with we'll be working with the city attorney's office, as he can attest. There are some constitutional issues when it comes to what's called freedom of speech. And believe it or not, lighting is an expression of freedom of speech to some degree.
I agree.
Did I say that correctly?
That is correct.
Goes both ways.
Stay there. So tell us about the water tower. The water tower has been demolished. We don't have a water tower. I didn't realize that we didn't have any water in it for the past 7 years. So that property, is it the city's property or is it the county?
Daytona Beach. Daytona Beach is actually going through a removal of water towers, outdated, which is somewhat of an outdated system. The new pressurized system that they're utilizing is more than adequate enough for the city of Daytona Beach when it comes to firefighting services. And so they're doing it all over Beachside and some other places as well. A lot of communities are actually doing that.
So
But the property, to answer your question, the property is owned by the city of Daytona Beach. I apologize, I went on a tangent.
And the removal of that water tower was an expense of the city?
In very indirectly to the consumer.
Okay, explain yourself. You mean to tell me it
So
was in our water bill?
So basically what I'm saying is that whenever a consumer is levied a fee, everything having to do with infrastructure is somewhat or somehow incorporated in that fee.
But basically, we pay that fee to the city of
Daytona
Port
Beach.
Orange.
That one is Daytona Beach.
Okay. Okay. So the land is on there is Daytona Beach Shores land?
The land is actually owned by, that land, is it? Yeah, I think it's the city of Daytona Beach.
The
Yes.
city of Daytona Beach,
Yes.
not Daytona Beach Shores?
No,
Right.
Daytona Beach.
Okay.
Daytona Beach.
All right. Some people were asking me, my God, what's going on with the water tower? And I go, I don't know. You know?
But you made a very good point. You know, it hasn't been functional and there hasn't been any water in there for several years. My guess is that you probably haven't been paying for that particular tower being there for years. If you're south of Thames, because remember, Daytona Beach provides water north of Thames, whereas the city of Port Orange provides water, potable water we're talking about, south of Thames.
Understood. Any other questions or concerns? You see, we save things up just when you're here, and then we ask you all these
You
questions.
can always catch me walking out there.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you. So if there's anything else, the next meeting is scheduled for February, let's see, what do we have it scheduled for? Super Bowl, February? February 10th, is that correct? The next meeting?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
You're not sure yet? All right, but if anybody has any issues, please make sure you let Sherry know when she comes back from her vacation. Otherwise, is that right?
Yes, you're
Thank you,
correct.
Gwen.
And we are tentatively considering a training after the meeting on March 10th.
Thank you.
tentatively. Has not been confirmed.
Thank you so much.
My birthday is 7.
Oh, did you hear that? Well, her birthday is